In this video, we're painting faces. Not those kind of faces, these kind of faces. What's up guys and girls, welcome back to another video about colour painting. My name is Graham and welcome to the channel. This week we're finishing off our mini with the basic brush skills videos with painting their faces, bringing some expression in life to your minis. Now, I know we've been painting the Stormcast Eternal from GW, but with it being easy to build model, the head is attached to the arm and the position of the head isn't the best to show you guys how to paint it. So we're going to use a proxy. The head we're going to be using is a Space Marine. I've chosen a little bold guy, so there's loads of skin, so we can show you exactly what's going on. So let's get into it. The first thing we do is base coat our minis in a mid-tone flesh colour. Unlike in the layering shading video, we're going to be using the mid-tone instead of a darker colour as the base colour. The reason for this is that we want contrast in the face, but not so much that it doesn't look human, and using a lighter colour will help with this. Plus, we can still add shades in the recesses and highlights to the raised areas to create more or less contrast if needed. Contrast is important when painting male versus female faces. The main difference between masculine and feminine facial features is that males tend to have a stronger contrast and females tend to have a softer contrast. Obviously, this is only a rule of thumb. If you want your warrior woman to look strong and chiseled, go for it. Next, we apply an overall flesh wash to the face, making sure it doesn't pool in any areas that we don't want it to. Once that's dried fully, next is a little tip, is to do the eyes now. The reason for this is that if you make mistakes, and if you're like me, you will, it's a lot easier to rectify those mistakes at this stage rather than when your face is fully painted and you spend hours trying to correct them. So take an off-white and thin it down just so it flows off the brush with even the lightest brush pressure, but not so much that it fills the area you're painting when you put it to the mini. With your finest tip brush, draw a horizontal line across the eyeball. This will be the white of the eye. Being so small, it can be difficult, so just hang in there and be patient. And after, touch up any of the skin tone around the eye if needed. Now to paint the pupils. You can do this by thinning your paint in the same way as before and take a fine brush with a very sharp tip and get a small dot right in the center of the eye. I'm using black, but it can be easier to touch up any mistakes if you use like a dark brown or say a grey. If you do make any mistakes, don't worry. Take your off-white again and touch up either side of the black dot that you've made until you're happy with it. And now you can breathe because the eyes are done. Remember, these are just really basic eyes, but they still can be fiddly, so just be patient. Next, we move on to building up that skin tone. We've already done a basic flesh wash just to pick out those recesses in the face. Remember, if you're going for a more feminine look for your mini, don't go too heavy at this next stage. This will give you a softer appearance with a more feminine look. For this, we're building up colour in the recesses, so you don't want your colour to be too heavy. I tend to thin my wash with a 50-50 mix of paint and thinner, and then glaze in with the mix into the shadowed parts of the face. When doing this glazing technique, it's important to take the moisture out of the brush. So before applying your thinned wash, place the brush on a paper towel just to take some of it out. And you don't want the brush to be wet, but you don't want it to be dry either. This may take some trial and error in getting used to gauge the right amount of moisture on the brush. So take your time and get a little practice before going to your mini. You're looking for your area that you're painting to be damp when applying the brush, but to be dried in about 10 to 15 seconds, depending on your warmth and humidity where you are painting. Now, you may not see the paint when you first apply it on your first 3 to 4 passes. This is expected. Reason being is because we're building up that colour with very, very thin paint. So don't freak out if you don't see any results immediately. Again, for a more feminine face, you can do less layers of shades for a softer look. At this point, you have an option to add a little bit more depth in the recesses. What you can do is add a little bit of thinned down crimson shade or red shade and apply it in the same way as before. This just gives the face a little bit more depth and a little bit more colour. Keep in mind the shape of the face when you're doing this. The deeper parts of the face, scars around the nose, ears for instance, are mostly deeper than, say, under the cheeks for instance, so they will be naturally darker. Keep this in mind and it will help you to keep your minis look more realistic. Now we're done with the shading, we can take that thinned mid-tone that we used as a base coat and just touch up any areas that we may have spilt over with the shade. Finally, we are ready for our highlights. The final thing to do is to bring some of the final contrast to the raised areas. Remember not to cover up any of the previous layers that we've already painted. This will create a transition from the darker areas to the lightest. So with a slightly lighter skin tone than our base coat, we are now establishing our main highlight colour with thin down paints and a fine brush, and run the brush over the raised areas just like we did in our layering and shading video. And finally, what we can do is take an off-white or a very pale skin tone, and with a fine brush highlight the very tops and raised areas, like the tops of the nose, the eyebrows, chin and tips of the ears, just that very final boost of contrast. And there you have it. Your simple yet effective face is done. And with all of that, your Stormcast Eternal or any mini following these simple steps is done. I really hope you've enjoyed these videos, guys. I hope you've at least taken something from them to up your miniature painting game. That's all from me for another video, guys. If you want to chat with me and like-minded people, go join us at the Underdog Painting Hobby Hangout group on Facebook. The link's in the description below. Remember to like and subscribe, share with your friends if you think they would enjoy it. Leave a comment below, just letting me know what you think of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!